As parents, we get to teach our kids everything and even how to talk. How do I teach my kid to talk? Vicki, you're a speech language pathologist, and you get to work with parents on this a lot too.
Right.
So what are some tips you can give us?
So I'm going to kind of take you right through the developmental stages. Obviously, speaking and communicating is something that we grow and develop throughout different stages.
Right. It's
And
more of a process.
It is
really.
a big process. And I just wanted to leave one little caveat that when you look up online, it's going to say, my child between the ages of this and this should be able to do that. Remember, these are norms, they're guidelines. Not every child who is not doing that by the last day is considered delayed or have a disorder. So just be aware, these are the things to watch for. So
Nice.
I wanted to make this super practical. So here we are. I'm just going to give you tips for the different development. You can start helping your child learn to communicate from birth to 3 months old. And you're like, wow, that's right? Yeah. So you're going to start right from the very beginning. One of the things you do with a child is you talk and you say something, then you pause. And then you go again. And that teaches turn taking. It's like I talk, I watch the child, the baby, for any response, and I then respond again. And you're watching for any reaction. You're going to do mirroring. This is the most important thing to do with the little tiny babies. Mirror. If they round their lips, you round your lip. Follow them. It's so interesting. If you just take a few minutes and lay down with the baby and just follow their lead. If they wiggle, you wiggle, do their mouth, and you're just teaching this communication, this mirroring. Do be aware that they probably are going to get tired and they might just turn their head away from you. That's okay. Let them just have their little break and then they'll come back. For their stimulation and their neurology, they're not ready to be stimulated the whole time, so they sometimes just need a break.
So, Vicki, these are things that can be done way before we ever
before.
start teaching words or getting them to say mama or dada.
Yeah, this is just communication, turn taking, exchanges, what we call joint
Right
attention. You're
after
making
birth.
right from the very start.
Wow.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about a little bit older infant, from about 4 months old to near a year old, right?
Okay.
This is a time you're really going to vamp up labeling things. So with a brand newborn, you're still talking, you're talking to your child back and forth. You're going to start labeling book, dog, cat, go, run. You're going to label everything that you're talking about.
Basically connecting up a sound with something that they can perceive or see in their environment.
Yeah, you're going to really just start labeling things, and you're going to encourage them to communicate in any way that they do, to take a communication turn. Maybe, you know what I like to use, and these kids are really young, but you could even do maybe a pat a cake, bakers. Man, and you kind of hesitate and bring in with it and let them kind of participate and take anything that they give you. If they go, they got the vowel, you're like, yes, man, bake me a cake. So you're going to take and respond to any communication gesture they give you.
I've noticed little kids do this pretty naturally with songs.
Oh, yes.
Because of the repetition and the
Those
melody.
are a really good way.
And they'll get the very last sound in a phrase and they'll blurt it out.
Right.
So that's kind of what you're talking about there as well.
Books are good for that too. There's a lot of books that's like, one of our favorite was Napping House, where everyone is
Sleeping.
You know, all of the kids knew, and you let them help. So start responding to any gesture of communication they give you and kind of hesitate and encourage any of that speech. Now our child is 1 to 2 years old. One of the things, remember that they're learning from listening to you. So you're going to always want to model good speech, meaning the correct pronunciation of things. So you wouldn't want to say wing for ring. If it's ring, then say ring, even if they might say wing. And I see this a lot of times as they learn their first words, they might say it a different way. Go ahead and let them do their words, and you continue to show them the right way because they're going to learn through example.
That's kind of a funny example for me because sometimes, like with our little grandkids and things, they mispronounce it because they're still learning how to articulate those sounds. And so with the example you used, oh, you like Grampy's wing? No, Grampy, not wing, wing.
Yeah. To them, it doesn't sound a whole lot different, right?
They know what the word is, and they can tell that you said it wrong, even though they can't say it properly yet.
Yep, that happens all the time.
So we have to model the correct way.
Model the correct one. Another thing is start explaining things. Explain how things work and why they work. Like, oh, Daddy goes to work in the morning. He's going to get in his car and turn it on. So you just start explaining what's happening around you.
Sequencing and processes that are happening.
Right. You want to start doing all of that. And of course, you're always going to encourage and respond to any communication gestures that they give you, which actually brings me to the next most important is you're going to start gesturing a lot. At this age, you use a lot of hands and you point to things and you mime things and you use gestures a lot because that is maybe they're not developed enough neurologically to communicate with a lot of words, but they can start communicating a lot with gestures. So go ahead and do a lot of gestures for them as well.
We'll just incorporate what they're naturally inclined to do. And Vicki, you've mentioned this before in other videos as well that I don't think we've quite touched on yet, and that is running a commentary.
Yeah, you're constantly talking about what you are doing. At this point, you're still talking a lot about what you're doing. You're starting to comment about what they are doing as you're playing with them. So now we're getting a little older. We're a 2 and a 3-year-old. They're starting to say a few words. They maybe have, by the time, so a child doesn't put 2 words together until they have about 50 words. So they're starting to label a lot of things. And we're going to continue.
So they know 50 words.
Yeah, till
but
they're
they don't
using,
start stitching them together until
they have to be
they
using 50 words. They probably know a lot more. They understand. Receptive language develops a lot faster. You have a bigger vocabulary receptively. Gotcha. But when they're using 50 words, they'll start stitching them together. So every stage that we're talking about, we're going to add to it. So now we have a 2, 3 to a 3-year-old. We're going to start asking and we're going to start answering who, what, and where questions. Now notice I didn't say why and when. Who, what, and where. Those are our concrete. It's really easy to see, oh, where is the ball? Where is it? And you can look and it's under they're very concrete. You can find the answer. What is that? Or who comes home? Or, things like that. So
it can be a really simple answer. It doesn't require a lot of thinking, but they have to connect the language to it.
And, we added gesturing. So when they point, we're going to start doing a lot of pointing and requesting them. Can you show me where's your elbow? And they can point. And so this is a great communication. We're developing both the receptive, the way we understand, as well as the expressive. I'm showing and pointing. So you're going to add a lot of pointing in as well. And so you're going to be doing some really simple, concrete questions. That's a place to start.
And this is age 2 to 3.
2 to 3. Mm-hmm.
So those toddler years, that's what we're talking about now.
Those little toddler years. And we're going to start naming and labeling and pointing to body parts. That's a really common thing because they're very aware of their self right now. They're very much in a self stage. So we want to talk about their body parts and finding the same on their
daddy's nose.
Yeah.
So baby's nose.
Yeah, so you're going to do a lot of that. So now your child knows a lot of words and they're probably stitching several, 2, 3. You expect between ages 3 and 4, even at least 4 words frequently together. And so you're going to start adding in directions. You're going to give them directions. Can you go tell daddy to come to dinner, or can you take this to grandma, or maybe go get your shoes and put them on the couch. You can try a 2-step direction like that. So you're going to start adding in some directions.
So Vicki, I know that especially as children are starting to understand directions, it's good to keep it very simple, not complicated or multiple steps. But you said by the time they're turning 3 or 4 years old,
they can do at least 1 step, sometimes 2 steps.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good.
And if you get lost and you've told them, go get your shoes, brush your teeth, and then come downstairs and bring your sister. That's 4.
Whoa.
That's like, woo.
Meltdown.
Probably they won't get that much. So just break it down into a couple of those steps. This time is really great to start introducing a lot more greetings. Help your child say, oh, let's say hi. There's our friend. They came to the park. Say, hi, Jimmy. And you're going to model how to do it. You're going to encourage them to say, because you want to do this greetings, because suddenly, we said it too, they're very much right here. They're starting to become aware of other people. So we want to do the greetings to get that social communication going.
It's around age 4 or 5 that we have metacognition kicking in, where kids can actually think about their own thinking and they start to realize there's more to this world than just me, and I have an impact on other people. So we're incorporating that now into the speech training.
Right. We really want to get those greetings, but we also want to do categories. This is so fun. How many times have you done with little kids? It's like, we have a whole pile of Legos. Let's do all the red ones over here and the green ones over here. Or you might have, let's find all the things when you're putting away the dishes, the things that we stir with, and you find the spoons. There's a lot of categorizing. So you might, this is a really great vocabulary development skill, because when you hear a new word, think about when you hear a brand new word, you have to kind of stick it in a category with something else you've heard. Right. And that's what we're doing with them. So we're teaching them how to categorize things, even as much as boy, girl. So we want to, that one, he's a boy, that's a girl, just different categories. All over the place, there's categories.
This can be, I wanted to use the word gamified, where you turn it into a game, because as kids are enjoying this, you can make it a game to create these categories. In fact, a lot of the games that are appropriate for kids of that age are of that nature.
Right.
Grouping things, categorizing things, and this is the natural thing that they do at this stage of development.
Right. And you can also add in at this stage a little bit of descriptions. So, that is, I just touched the light bulb. It gets hot and it gives us light. And it's glass, so it's really, we need to be careful with it. It can break. So you're adding in explanations, descriptions.
Nice.
We talk so much about, we want our child to talk, right? But at age 3 and 4 is when you start really teaching them how to listen for sounds. Maybe go on a listening walk, and you stop and say, what can you hear right now? Like the water or the birds, or maybe some bugs. Maybe in the house, you're like, do you hear that buzzing? I wonder what that is. So you're starting to really explore sounds, just listening.
I'm chuckling over here because we're talking about 3-4-year-old kids. Guess what's the first thing that I teach to couples who come in for counseling or coaching?
Increase their listening.
Listen, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Let's use them in that proportion.
Yeah, we really want to get that listening going. So
that's an important part of communication and of speech, obviously, but also that social connectedness is going to be facilitated by listening more.
Right. Okay, and so the next stage we're going to talk about, and it's the last stage, is the 4 to 5-year-old. Okay. We're going to add in sequencing. We're going to start using sequencing words like before, next, after. We're going to do some story retell first. Goldilocks went in the house. Next, she sat in the chair. And last, the bears came home. Of course, I'm going to add more in. But you're going to use sequencing words at this point.
That helps them to put all of the words that they've been learning into a greater context, and also introduces an interesting thing called storytelling, which is an important part of communication.
It is, and as you notice, these are all going to get them ready for their school age years too, where there's a lot of sequencing of steps. Think about math and all the sequencing that's involved there. You need to understand before, next, then, first. Those are all great words, so you're going to want to introduce those words to them. Another really great thing for the 4 to 5-year-old is to talk about why things happen. This introduces cause.
That's a higher level.
Yeah, it introduces cause and effect. So you help them talk about, why. They'll have a hard time still answering the question why, but you can start talking about why. You might say, let's suppose together, why is the sky blue today and it was gray yesterday? And then talk about the clouds. Or you might just say, I put on my coat because it's cold outside. That's why I wear a coat. That's a why. Yeah, so you're giving them the why. And last is you really want to encourage them to start talking about their feelings and to describe their emotions. So this is just, they're socially and emotionally now ready to start talking about those. So you want to help them learn how to do that and give them words for that.
That's a lot of information. You've got this. You're a good parent. You're a conscious, positive parent, and that's why you're here, and we're glad that you are. We've teamed up to bring you some other resources at the Parenting Power Up. If you haven't checked it out yet, please click on parentingpowerup.com and we'll be part of your positive parenting team. Her head was down, face locked onto the phone. And I
wished